Hello, I'm APX Toycat, and if you were excited for the idea of a Minecraft 2.0 update, let me tell you about the exciting news: Minecraft 26 has been announced. If this sounds a little crazy, allow me to show you exactly what I mean, because Mojang have confirmed they are releasing a 26.10 update next year. They specifically do reference the fact that 1.22 is not going to be happening, that is very clear, and this is the biggest announcement in the future of Minecraft updates perhaps the game has ever seen, so let's explain what's happening before going into my analysis as usual. As always, you can subscribe to see more Minecraft news like this, including the honest and real takes that you can only get here on this channel, but let's get started by clarifying what this chart actually means, because without understanding the problem Mojang are trying to solve, I think you can look at this all day and end up quite confused, because simply put, Minecraft has had a problem for a while of version numbers getting more and more confusing. You see, 1.0 came out in 2011, and every update after that, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, etc., was going up sequentially until they hit 1.21, the Tricky Trials update in June of 2024. However, at that point they decided to switch from game updates to game drops, and to make sure people knew they were different, instead of calling it 1.22, they decided to call the Garden Awakens 1.21.50 on Bedrock and 1.21.4 on Java. Then they continued to increase this number over time until we get to the point we're at now, where the brand new update Mounts of Mayhem is about to release as 1.21.130 or 1.21.11, and so Mojang have decided it's time to update how they version their Minecraft releases to reflect their new game drop strategy. And so what is that solution? Well, great question actually. So going forwards, they'll be numbering their versions based on the year, so for both Bedrock and Java, version numbers in the year 2026 will begin with 26. They have a little bit of an apostrophe right here to clarify exactly what they mean, and you might be a bit confused by that. I know I was, so here is the chart that explains how they would have versioned this year's updates if they were to use this new system. As you can see, they would have started with 25 instead of the 1 point to clarify we're still on full release. Nope, it is now 25 points, which is kind of crazy to me, I've got to say, but we'll come back into that later. So we start every new version number with the year, kind of like how snapshots start with the year, and so 25.10 would have been the Spring to Life update on Bedrock, while it would have been 25.1 on Java. They are still going to keep this difference between Bedrock and Java updates, which gets more severe when we get to the Chase the Skies drop, which comes out as 25.30, the third release of the year on Bedrock. Bedrock gets double as many updates as Java in the new system, and then it's 25.2 on Java. I think they should have simplified this and just made it 25.3 there, but I digress. That is how they're going to do things. And then if any hotfixes come out, on Bedrock it would be called 25.31 to 25.34, whereas on Java it's 25.2.1. That means that there are now 3 version numbers on Java, 2 version numbers on Bedrock, and that can seem a little confusing, so how about we switch to a more visual explanation? Here is a visual representation of what Minecraft updates will look like starting in 2026. So the first important thing to note is that red numbers, representing what major release we're on, are going to go away. Minecraft have said for a while that they don't want to do a Minecraft 2, and so having that there is arguably quite silly, and so now the first version number will be the year. Apparently this is what iOS does, but it means the first drop of 2026 will be called 26.1, and then if a bug fix were to release for that, it would be called 26.1.1 for Java. These green numbers though are exclusive to Java, because on Bedrock there would be no point between them, because the first bug fix to 26.10 would be called 26.11 for Bedrock. Hopefully that explains things simple enough. However, it does mean that the first update to look forward to next year is not actually going to be called this, but instead is going to be called 26. Okay, let's try and make it 2 as best we can here. Instead it's going to be called 26.2. Yeah, that's just about 1. It's going to be called 26.2 if you're on Java, and if you're on Bedrock, it's going to be called 26.20. This is going to be the Spring to Life equivalent drop for next year. We know nothing about it yet, although we're expecting, to see previews of it soon. This is what the first exciting drop of next year is going to be called, and I've got to say, it's easy to understand once you get it, but this is a massive departure from what we've seen already. We were expecting, if they followed the current version number, to see 1.26.150, and 26.20 does make more sense in a way, but it's also vastly more alien than I was expecting. Now, to be clear here, there is a very small chance that, we are all misreading this diagram, and maybe they will still call it 1.26.20. A part of me could expect that much easier. This is exactly what predicted, but based on what they have said in this diagram, I think on balance, 2620 is what you should be excited for, which sounds like a year that's 395 years in the future from now. But whatever, that is how things look. By the way, speaking of how things look, I've been putting these copper chests all around my world because I've been hiding discs around my creative world, and I've got to make sure that I only use them for those same discs. So let's make sure we don't leave those there. Looking forward to 2620 though. Anyway, so what are the... Mojang seem very sure in this new version update system, and should they be? Well, on the surface, yes. I mean, they clarify that this shouldn't have a huge impact on their players, but they're hoping it'll make it easier for creators and modders to know which version numbers represent a game drop and which ones are just patches or bug fixes, but they also say it should allow the community to talk about our game drops before they have a name. We used to be able to talk about 1.22, and then they stopped calling updates anything predictable, and so what do you call the next game drop that doesn't have a name or a version number? You have to call it the next game drop that's coming out in spring, and that's really cumbersome and really limits the creative discussion. But now we have an equivalent of 1.22 to talk about, which is really great, but then that raises the question, what about that update? You know, Mojang, when they made their announcement they'd be moving from updates to game drops, they implied they'd be working on longer term initiatives and that updates would be coming back. However, it does look as though this is basically an announcement of the reverse. So to read directly from you at the top of their announcement here, they say that instead of providing one free update during the year, they instead wanted to release content more frequently, called game drops, and that this new version numbering system is to allow them to release those same game drops. They now believe that anything that happens from here on out is going to fit into this game drop system, and it means that there is not going to be space for a once a year update ever again, and if they want to do a bigger game drop, then it's going to be precisely that. For example, I think that the Mounts of Mayhem drop is much bigger than the Spring to Life one, and so they're both called drops in the game number system. They both add new features, and content creators and players need to know that, and so now it's going to function like the difference between 1.10 and 1.12, or 1.14 and 1.15, where you need to know the significance of a given update because there's no version number difference between if they made a massive end update or if they make a single update that just adds bundles and hardcore. These will both be called a game drop from here onwards, or at the very least, even if Mojang doesn't call them a game drop, they'll be represented the exact same as one, and so this is a massive change, let's make that perfectly clear, but that's where the thoughts come in here, because I do think that, yeah, having no major update to look forward to makes sense, but this is a weird way to drop that ball without actually saying it, and I also think it's fun that we basically predicted this a few Q&A Saturdays ago. I did think that if Mojang was going to change their version numbers anyway, then putting the year in there would be really good, because it, unlike 1.21.110, you have no idea when that came out. 27.8 has exact sense. It's the 8th drop or update that came out in 2027. This new update system is really cumbersome and will be confusing for a while, but it is good in that way. It is worth pointing out that, like, wait a minute, Toycat, though. What about, like, your previews and snapshots? Snapshots quite famously already include the year at the beginning, and interestingly, they clarify that these snapshots will have to change as well. The first snapshot for the Mounts of Mayhem was 25W41A, but now it would be 25.4 Snapshot 1. That's right, version numbers are now going to change for Bedrock betas and Java snapshots, and we were expecting to see our first new beta and preview in this new system today, but it looks like that has been delayed for yet another week. And so, yeah, the first 26 snapshots ever, the first 26 preview, is going to be happening real soon. They're working on it right now, but we currently don't get to see it. So that is, I guess, one downside of this new version number announcement. It has stolen the thunder of what should have been our first look at the next update. But yeah, I think that if you ask for my overall thoughts now, outside of the funny joke that, Pro Michael suggests here on Twitter, that this version number can only last for 99 years at most, because otherwise, what happens in the year 2126? So obviously, this is a Minecraft version version system, which can only be temporary. Outside of that, like a small little concern, my biggest concern here is that Bedrock and Java are still not synced up. My god, Mojang, how did you just release a brand new version system that you made from scratch? This is absolute balls to the walls chaos compared to the old system in terms of how different it is, but still, they clarified that if they were to go back and redo this year's version number system, they would make it so the 25.70 update would be 25.4 on Java. You just said in your own release you wanted to simplify it. You clarified that having a next update title to talk about would be good, so why is it 25.70 and 25.4 instead of 25.70 and 25.7? Sure, Java can still keep its 25.3.1, but after that, maybe it should... I feel like having some semblance of syncing this up, whether that means changing Java or Bedrock, would have made sense, because without doing that, we've done all of these changes, and we haven't fixed one of the key concerns. Sure, a part of me would like it if version numbers were perfectly synced. Instead of Bedrock being 25.10, it could just be 25.12, but at least have it make sense and be like, oh yeah, add a 0 to get Bedrock, remove a 0 to get Java, whereas right now you need to still perfectly follow both systems. It just feels as though one of the key things they should have fixed wasn't. Otherwise, I would say the year first thing is going to be, kind of good, but it just doesn't feel right compared to other software. Again, apparently iOS does this, apparently some other software companies will do this too, but there's just something right about the the x.xx.xxx version system numbering, and even though it has all sorts of problems that were starting to be clear, it does feel a bit weird to me, but this is probably me being a Minecraft boomer and saying, I wish they just go back to title updates. But yeah, Minecraft have done something huge and bold, and it's gonna take a while to truly adjust to this one. Even looking backwards from now onwards, right? We're gonna have to clarify that pre and post 2026 updates are gonna be called 1.21 point whatever. For example, when we're talking about past updates, it's weird to say, yeah, there was 27.1, 26.1, and then 1.21.50, and then 1.20, and that, it's weird is what I'm saying. But I guess anything is weird when it first comes out. Also, I'm secretly hoping that despite all the evidence to the contrary, that I have misunderstood and they mean that the updates will be called 1.26.10, because if they're going to keep the current weirdness between Bedrock and Java, they should also keep the current weirdness of having a 1 at the start, because now how are we going to hope for a Minecraft 2? We just can't do it anymore, because, Minecraft 2 has been skipped, Minecraft 3 has been skipped, even Minecraft 25 has been skipped, and Minecraft 26 is about to release, and I guess we should be excited. Anyway, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and favorite, or whatever else you like to do to videos you enjoy, because I'll see you all tomorrow. Goodbye.